What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're back with more Destiny 2 Lightfall news. And in this one, Bungie start releasing new Lightfall soundtracks, but they also tease the launch trailer for the expansion, and we do get a short preview of that. So we'll cover those as well as details for the new Season 20 collaboration, new armor sets for Season of Defiance, but also we get extra details on loadouts, secret areas in Lightfall, more detail on PvE changes, exotic drops, and much more, which we'll cover in the video. And so as always guys, I hope you enjoy this one, and if you're new to the channel, be sure to get subscribed as we'll have a lot of Lightfall content to cover in the next couple of weeks. But without further delay, let's get into it. And so initially you may have noticed some new sounds right here, and Sony Music Soundtracks tweeted that ahead of Lightfall's launch on February 28th, they're releasing 2 of the tracks from the upcoming soundtrack, which will be available on February 27th. And so I'll link the tracks down below if you want to check them out, as they are pretty awesome. But also we get a teaser for the upcoming Lightfall launch trailer, and Destiny 2 say, tune into PlayStation State of Play starting on February 23rd at 1 PM PST, where we'll get an exclusive first look at the launch trailer for Destiny 2 Lightfall. There's also a short teaser clip right here for the trailer, and so if you want to check it out, here it is.
There's too many of them! Going down! Let's be careful, these out here! We need this! I'm hit!
Pretty awesome stuff right there, and no doubt the launch trailer will drop some juicy story teasers. But additionally for Season 20, it looks like Bungie have yet another collaboration with a different game, and Among Us tweeted a teaser right here, saying there will be an Among Us and Destiny 2 collaboration. Obviously that hasn't been fully revealed just yet, but as we've seen in the past couple of seasons, no doubt that will include new armor sets and Eververse items we'll be able to pick up in Season 20. Up next though, we have a handful of other updates. And initially, Destiny Bulletin shared that a new emote will become available on the 28th of February with Lightfall, and this is the flamenco dance. So if you fancy yourself a bit of flamenco in the game, it's something we'll be able to do once the expansion drops. And of course that will be in the Eververse store. But also here we're getting another look at some of the new armor. This is the Season of Defiance armor, which is indeed Techian themed. I actually think it's pretty cool armor right here. We can see the Warlock, and Bungie have taken that Techian style, but are applying it with some new geometry and unique armor pieces for all of the classes. We did spot these in the Lightfall Vidoc. You can see a handful of the Guardians right here on the commendation screen. I've got both new Lightfall Destination armor, but also the Defiance armor. But also, as we've seen from some of the Season of Defiance artwork, the main ornaments for these armor sets are going to switch them up quite a lot. And these remind me a little more of sort of Solstice armor or something, but indeed appear to be the ornaments for that Techian armor set. So it also gives us a better look at some of the armor we'll be able to pick up. Then of course in the expansion, as well as the destination pieces, there'll be the stuff that we get from the raid, and possibly some other bits as well. So share your thoughts on those new armors down below. And here we get a few other updates about loadouts coming in Lightfall. So this is from an article from PC Gamer, and Tim Clark's been able to speak to Bungie devs about a few different elements of the expansion, and points out that Bungie have confirmed we'll be able to swap in-game loadouts mid-activity without having to go to orbit. And essentially we'll be able to switch at any time, unless we are in a gear-locked activity. And the Bungie developers also said swapping loadouts should be comparable to the time it takes to swap a single piece of equipment on your character screen, which of course is a significant improvement over either switching a bunch of gear yourself or even using the current third-party tools. But in terms of build slots for loadouts, there'll be 10 available for each character, which are unlocked as we level up through the Guardian ranks. And another interesting tidbit of information right here, but the new loadout system will be able to pull items from the vault in order to equip them. But initially when Lightfall launches, it won't be able to place gear back into the vault. So depending on the amount of variation across your different loadouts, obviously we could still end up with a lot of items actually stored on characters, but for any stuff we're not using, we will be able to just drag it back into the vault using DIM or something like that. Although the developers said this is a problem that they might look into addressing in the future. Perhaps they could add a toggle to vault a certain build, which would just move the gear into storage or something like that. But obviously having 10 loadout slots and the ability to just switch them on the fly is a pretty big initial improvement. Although it seems likely Bungie will continue to develop and improve on these kind of tools in the game. Now though, Bungie talk a little bit about difficulty changes for PvE content going into Lightfall. And so to talk about the highlights right here, they say Adept difficulty is being removed, and Hero difficulty will now be available at 1750 power, which is the soft cap, with Legend and Master difficulties being enterable once you hit 1800, which is the power cap. And for the activity levels for Season 20, Hero will be 770, Legend will be 1830, and Master 1840. But they're also changing burns and some of the modifiers for activities, so they say burns in high level activities will be split into surges and threats. Surges will increase our outgoing damage, and that includes increasing elemental damage dealt by 25%. Then surges for high difficulty activities change every season based around featured damage types. So the featured surge for Season of Defiance will be Strand, but weekly rotating surges will be Solar and Void. Another component of this though will be threats, and threats increase elemental damage coming from enemies by 25%, so pretty much the opposite of surges. And in addition, high-level activities will now also feature overcharged weapons. So an overcharged weapon deals 25% more damage, where kinetic damage is also increased by 25% if using a surging subclass. And they say overcharged weapons can come from several sources. Currently, that'll be weapons set per activity and weapons featured as champion counters on the seasonal artifact. But they say overcharges and surges do not stack, and overcharged weapons don't get extra damage if they're also surging. So we only need one for a given damage source. And they say that combatants are harder to stagger and their health has been increased across the board, which is to compensate for surge and overcharge. But the effect is strongest on powerful enemies and weakest on rank and file enemies. So that'll certainly mix up how modifiers work and how we think about the equipment that we're going to use for some of the more difficult content in the game. And additionally, they outline strike refreshes, so they say Lake of Shadows and Arms Dealer are being updated with new enemies, encounters, mechanics, and objectives. We can expect them to be much tougher than before and less Sparrow friendly, but they are working on adjusting other strikes like Exodus Crash and Inverted Spire. And for now, their presence on Vanguard Ops playlists has been dramatically reduced, and they also won't be part of the Nightfall rotations until brought to parity. Then there are changes for the Vanguard Ops playlists, and PsyOps Battlegrounds and Heist Battlegrounds are going to become part of that playlist, which is also now power disabled like Gambit and Crucible, and that means you won't have a damage advantage over enemies, or them upon you, no matter your power level. But additionally, daily rotators and weekly singes have been removed and replaced with a weekly random surge, as well as a daily threat and one daily random modifier from the Best Of collection, including subtle foes, lightning crystals, and more. But if you're wondering about Lightfall activity levels for Season 20, again Hero will be 1770, Legend 1830, Master will be 1840, and Grandmaster will also be 1840. But obviously difficulty is being introduced into Grandmasters in different ways via these mechanics. Additionally, Bungie say that Legend and Master difficulty lost sectors will feature a plus 20 combat delta rather than minus 15 or minus 20. But they will be monitoring completion rates and times during Season 20 to see if exotic engram drop rates need to be adjusted. However, they point out again that there will be additional paths to acquiring Lightfall exotic armors that we can discover on February 28th. So the new exotic armor in Lightfall won't be dropping via lost sectors, and there could be an element of world drops there instead, as well as potentially specific drop sources or higher chances in new activities for the expansion. So give us your thoughts below on those specific changes, and if you want to check out the full PvE update article, I will link that in the description box. The next thing I wanted to speak about, though, is an interesting area that we spotted inside of the Vidoc for Lightfall. So there's a spot right here where we can see restricted area is listed. But interestingly enough, this was also a part of the Ishtar Academy on Venus in Destiny 1. So there is the potential that this is a kind of matching facility in a different destination. But it's curious because inside of the interactive Lightfall trailer, Bungie did place some images of the Ishtar Collective statue, which was on Venus as well in Destiny 1. Obviously, there's that small possibility we could return to Venus for a very specific piece of content or something. Or again, it could be a different Ishtar Collective facility, but we do know that the Vex are going to be involved in the story around Lightfall and the destination, and so there's possibly a connection right there, and as we've seen, we will be returning to the Vex network for some of the upcoming content. We're not 100% certain why we'll be going back, although the new 6-player activity for the destination, Terminal Overload, will see us fighting the Shadow Legion and the Vex. So perhaps there's a connection to that since we can also see some Cabal in the Vex network right here. Otherwise though, these again could be secret areas for quests and in-game content, so it'll certainly be interesting to see how this connects to the Lightfall story, and I'd love to get any thoughts or speculation from you guys below. The final thing to touch on right here, but Bungie have confirmed that starting with Lightfall, they'll be introducing a different type of character boost that includes the option to skip the campaign. And so once Lightfall launches, players will see one of two types of boosts on their character screen depending on their progress. There's initially a Lightfall character boost, and this appears when you hit the soft cap with one character but have not completed Lightfall. And the boost provides the selected character with a set of high power level gear, but doesn't skip the campaign. Then the alternative boost is the campaign skip boost, and this appears when you complete the main story, and it skips the Lightfall campaign for your selected character and unlocks Strand, but it only includes a set of high power level gear if your main character has hit the soft cap. And they point out that if you haven't reached the soft cap or completed the campaign, neither of those character boosts will be available, but it does appear that these will be paid character boosts, so they're not automatically going to become available for veteran players or things like that. It's an option that we'll essentially have to purchase if we want to be able to skip the campaign on second characters and so on. So it's a good bit of functionality that players have been asking for, although there's definite disappointment that this is a paid element, especially given that a lot of players consider it to be a basic quality of life upgrade. But give us your thoughts about it down below. Again, I think it's a good function to have, but having to pay for it is certainly something that won't be especially popular amongst veteran players. So share your thoughts in the comment section, guys, but for today, that is everything we have to speak about. So, as always, I hope you found the video useful and interesting, and if you have, a rating down below really does help us out on the channel. Also, be sure to get subscribed, we're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about in the coming weeks. But otherwise, as always, I appreciate you guys tuning in, and whatever you get up to, I hope you have an awesome day.